pleasure to introduce today's moderator. He's the chair of our campaign committee, our party's campaign committee, and a Medford City Councilor, Kevin Stine.
Thank you very much, David. We will hear from you again at the close of the program about upcoming events and how people can get involved. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Stine. I'll be moderating the forum between the four candidates that we hear from today. I do want to acknowledge that a fifth candidate, Peter Quince, from Ashland, recently filed as well. Due to the timing of his candidacy, he will not be included in this debate, but will be included in all future events. I want to give a warm welcome to everybody. I ask that if you haven't done already, please silence your phones. And I want to give a quick note to elected officials in the audience. So Angela Bukowski, from Medford School District, and then sitting next to her is Eric Johnson, also from the Medford School District. If there's anyone else that's a local elected, please let me know. Also, you can become a PCP, so you can all be on the ballot this May. So, real quick, while there's a discussion about the issues in front of us, let there be no debate about the world we're living in. The state of our country is one of chaos. We have Congress and court system that, instead of being part of checks and balances, has allowed the executive branch under the second term of President Trump to run amok. However, this November is an opportunity to elect a new member for Congressional District 2. 275 days from today, voters across the country have the opportunity to let their voices be heard and elect new representation to hold this administration accountable and lead us down a different path. Just yesterday in Texas, a deep red state Senate seat flipped to the Democratic Party. If the Democrats can win red seats in Texas, then Democrats can win them also in Oregon. So with that, let's announce our candidates. Patty Snow from Phoenix. Rebecca Mueller from Medford. Dawn Rasmussen from the Dalles. And Mary Doyle from the Greater Bend area. So just so everyone knows, the rules of the forum have been agreed to by all candidates. Candidates will have 2-minute introduction each. Following that, we have questions. They'll be answered by each candidate. They'll have 90 seconds to answer each of those questions. We do have timekeepers in front, and for fairness, I will hold all candidates to those times. The specific questions were chosen by me with assistance from those that submitted questions online. I may also use questions that have been submitted on the note cards that have been filled out today. I ask the audience that whether you agree or disagree with a response, that you be respectful to the candidates and the rest of the audience by not loudly cheering or shouting, as that will take up valuable time to hear from our candidates. With that, let us begin with introductions. First up, Patty Snow.
Testing. Okay, it's on. Yes, I'm Patty Snow. I live in Phoenix, just outside of Medford. And yes, I am a Democrat. However, I call myself a purple Democrat, not a blue Democrat, and it has nothing to do with my hair color. I'm a purple Democrat, which just simply means that I am running to represent everybody, regardless of their party. With me, people always will come first. They will come before party politics, certainly before the president's wishes, and also before any desires of wealthy donors. The people come first. You will hear in my answers today that everything I do is focused on you. And my 4 core areas that I have in my platform will be healthcare, the environment, the economy, and most importantly, our rights. So I look forward to hearing your questions. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Mueller. I'm a rural pediatrician, advocate, and a mother, and I've been working and living in the Rogue Valley for about 10 years. Today you're going to hear from 4 candidates that are all passionate, motivated, and courageous. And all of us agree that Trump is an authoritarian president, that he is utilizing a complacent Congress to undo our rights, to bury a free press, to upend the balance of powers, and to create lots of opportunity for special interests, and is now starting to form a police state. We all agree on that. However, a quick review of the polls, of social media, of Fox News will show you very quickly that many people in our district, in fact most, do not agree with us. And while this is a Democratic primary, this race is for Congress. We have had decades of the same speeches, of the same talking points, and yet every cycle we point the finger at the other guy and less gets done. In our district, typically 1/3 of non-affiliated voters votes for the blue candidate. In this election in November, we need over half of that to go for our candidate. Are we going to offer them a candidate that has the same blue talking points and just expect that this time they're going to agree? Are we going to focus on their issues? My goal is to focus on their issues and also to remind us and all of them that we have far more values that we agree on together than we have differences. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dawn Rasmussen. I'm coming to you from the Dalles, and I live there with my husband. What drove me to run for this office is simply because this is my act of resistance. Instead of being sad, angry, scrolling, doom scrolling, being upset, I had to channel my energy, and I realized no one is coming to save us but us. It's not just these candidates here, it's everybody in this room, because we all have to galvanize. And one of the things that's really happening that I'm seeing around the district as I go around is I'm seeing that Oregonians are struggling. We are being crushed by rising costs. Everywhere you can see the struggle. But despite all of that, I am hopeful, not hopeless. I believe we can change how politics work here. I'm an Oregonian running as an Oregonian, not as a partisan warrior. I'm willing to sit down and do the hard work that it's going to take to bring everybody together and actually get stuff done. People are frustrated because we're tired of the bickering. We have to get things done. So I promise 3 things. Number 1, economic justice. We need to make the wealthy pay their fair share and corporations pay their fair share. We need to lower inflation. We have to make sure that we are not paying tariffs that are absolutely unregulated, unnecessary, and illegal. The other thing we wanted to do is make sure that we have someone in office who is actually pursuing appropriations for this district. Cliff Benz is not doing that. He's just clocked out, basically, and I don't accept that. Number 2, the second thing that I want to talk about is protect what matters. We have to have health care for all. Mic drop right there. We need to make sure that we protect our air, our water, our soil. We need to fund firefighting efforts. We're all under threat now. And this is not, and we also need to make sure that education is funded for every single child in this state and this country. This is not a Democratic issue. It's not a Republican issue. Right now, it's an Oregon issue. The third thing I need to say, I need to stop. Okay, I went a little bit, okay, sorry, thank you.
2 minutes does go fast. Thank you.
Hello, CD2. My name is Mary Doyle. I am a 20-plus year public education teacher serving the Battle Pine School District. I am a mother, I am a sister, I am a new grandmother as of January 1st. I am running because in 2016, in the run-up, I was turning into someone I did not want to be. Someone who sat behind a keyboard, someone who got in arguments with people that I should have been building coalitions with. So in this second round, I decided to stand up along with these ladies because we need to decide that we do have a 5-alarm fire. The midterms is it will be the most important midterms of our democracy, and I think we can all agree on that. Everything I say today in answering my questions hinges upon 2 concepts. It is a fair taxation policy that holds the millionaires and the oligarchs accountable for their pillaging and extraction of wealth off of our bodies, off of our environment, and off of what it means to be a functioning democracy. Second of all is the corruption in politics. There is a movement that is getting to be run afoot. It's a 28th Amendment, and this amendment is going to focus on banning greed in politics by outlawing any corporate PAC money. Individuals are the only ones who should be contributing to politics, not corporations. Corporations are not free speech. As well, the 29th Amendment, which is going to be term limits. We should not have career politicians, nor should we have a SCOTUS that is there for life. We need to expand the courts as well. So those 2 things, with everything I talk about, is focused and hinged upon our tax policy and getting corruption out of politics. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, candidates will have 90 seconds to answer each question. We're going to start off with ICE. The first question is about Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE. We have seen chaos across the country with the tactics used by ICE, and that has led to the deaths of many people, notably Renee Good and Alex Petty. What are your thoughts on ICE and immigration enforcement in general? We're going to start off with Rebecca.
Thanks for the great question. So all of us in this room absolutely agree that the things going on in Minneapolis are atrocious. They have no foundation in our constitutional government. And I would like to take us back to that because, to be honest, the Republicans claim the Founding Fathers as their own. But if we look at the Founding Fathers, they were radicals. They were designing a democracy that was of the people, by the people, for the people, and they actually believed that the people, when educated, when given economic opportunity, deserved the right and had the fortitude to rule themselves. What we see going on in Minneapolis is not just ICE as an excuse to take power, and that's the second thing that the Constitution tried to derail, was the ability of one leader to become an authoritarian and to totally overlook the rights of the people in the street and to take them for himself. So when I look at ICE, I think this is a much broader picture. I think Trump is using every excuse that he can to put thugs in the streets, to run over the rights not only of citizens that are here with legal status and refugees, but also to deny the human dignity of those that are here illegally. And that is a centerpiece of my campaign. We should not be doing anything that denies the human dignity of the person in front of us or the person across the states. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like everyone here, we don't want criminals in our communities, but as it's been proven over and over again, most immigrants are not criminals. They actually have contributed to our society. They have helped this country innovate, move forward, be productive. They are the ones that have helped us become us. I embrace diversity. I embrace immigrants. They have such a huge part of us, of our culture, of our country, and our vision of where we can go. ICE is just basically being used as a political tool by the Trump administration to not only disenfranchise and disengage, but also deport people that don't look like the white nationalistic image. I have a problem with that. That is not the vision I want to see in this country. And I believe that we should not have a system that absolutely is being a political tool and weapon. And the other arching purpose of this whole awful time in our country is that they're trying to provoke us so then they can call the Insurrection Act. I have a problem with that too. So we have a right to express our voices, and we also need to embrace our neighbors. These are all people that are contributing to our society. And I do believe that we need to stop funding ICE because they are hurting our country and damaging our country and destroying our country. Thank you.
So I also want to talk in regards to the mandate for leadership through the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. This is number 2 on their core list, is to restructure the administrative state. And they are doing this by weaponizing ICE, which these ladies have spoken to and which we will continue to talk about tonight. They are stripping away the dignity and they are dehumanizing people. That is not okay. Since colonial times, our country has weaponized immigration from the Chinese Exclusion Act to the Japanese internment. And now ICE is buying warehouses across our country to put people in who may never come out. They are not paying the medical bills of those in detention. We have women and children who also are literally screaming from inside these detention centers. The objective of this administration is cruelty, and we must never forget that when we go to the polls. We need to recognize that everyone has a right to exist with dignity in our country and treat each other with fairness and walk through life with kindness. Thank you.
I'm mad as hell. On January 24th, Alex Preddy was peacefully protesting, and a woman next to him got knocked to the ground. He threw his body on her to protect her from the ICE agents. They had tear gas sprayed at them, and then he was dragged off the woman. He was thrown to the ground. He openly told them he has a gun in his back pocket that he was licensed to carry. He told them so it wouldn't look like he was trying to hide it. They removed the gun, and then they shot him in the back at least 10 times. For any of you who didn't think we were in an authoritarian government, think again. These people have been militarized to invade our streets, to separate children from their parents, to send people to facilities in states far away, and then never to be heard from. I told you what my first 4 platform issues are. But when I get to Congress, nothing takes precedent over this. We must demand that ICE gets off our streets. Send them back to the border where they're supposed to be. I believe in a strong border. I believe that we need to have law enforcement to make sure that our borders are safe. But that is not what they are doing. They're trying to make this a homogeneous society, and we are not. And I just got my stop card, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question is about affordability. Affordability is consistently a top issue in polling. Housing costs, insurance costs, and the cost of electricity are going up, among many other needs. What is your response to what is happening? And as a member of Congress, what changes, if any, would you like to see made? And that question is to Dawn.
Affordability. I think everybody here is scared. I'm scared. How am I going to make it? My job, I'm a professional resume writer and career management person. I'm being replaced by AI. So I'm going to have to figure out something beyond whatever this outcome of this race is going to be. That's okay. I'm a thinker. Affordability is hitting us everywhere. It's increased housing costs, whether it be the rent or mortgages or home prices. And then we have healthcare that's skyrocketing. And then we have education that you walk out of school with huge amounts of debt, educational rent debt. We have fuel prices. We have grocery prices. What's the common theme here? And the common theme is that there are a lot of corporations that are controlling every aspect of our life. They are charging us more and more. I'm mad. I am furious, and I'm ready to fight all these inflationary, predatory tactics that these corporations are inflicting upon us, the people, Even the farmers, they are not getting the benefit of the price you're paying in the grocery store. It's the grocery stores. It's all these middlemen that are in the way with all these giant corporations. And you know, back in the day when we had robber barons, there was antitrust legislation. Where the hell is that now? It's not present. And in fact, they're just strengthening everything that has to fall in line with this corporate structure. So, going to Congress, my plan is to go out and fight for affordability and lower the prices so we can continue living a life that we're not worried about going into debt for.
When we talk about affordability, we also, like I stated earlier, we need to also address our tax policy. That is the first thing that needs to be done. We need to have a progressive tax policy where the people who are working to survive pay actually less taxes than the corporations who are pillaging our government. Second off, like I mentioned earlier, the 28th Amendment of taking out money out of politics. Corporations should not be able to buy political speech. We also need to strengthen our IRS. This administration took away the funding that was actually going after those who are cheating our system at the expense of the working class. Working families are paid more for the basics, and we have to address this through taxation and enforcement policy. I also think that the way that we measure our economy based upon the gross domestic product is inherently false and misleading and leads to a narrative that convinces people that they are just going to walk through life and expect the system to be the way that it is. There is another concept we need to start talking about in taxation and policy in regards to how we run our country. We need to start aligning it with what is called the genuine progress indicator. It is a whole different way of measuring how we exist and live in our country. And I think it's a better metric for ensuring that the people who are working and who are contributing are actually progressing in life. Thank you.
I agree with everything that Dawn and Mary said, and I want to add something to that. We have seen our prices at the grocery store go up. We have seen prices of things like cars and other items in Target when you're shopping go up. That is directly because of the tariffs that Trump has put willy-nilly on these countries, and he does it out of retaliation. He wants to create fear and make those countries believe that the United States holds all the power. The United States is not an island. We have to have fair trade policies with our trade partners. Take China, for instance. When Trump decided to impose a high tariff on them, they retaliated by saying, okay, we're not going to buy your soybeans. That directly affected the farmers here in Oregon. The same with the wheat sales. That went down. What happened to all the farm equipment that they were trying to buy? Those prices went up because we got those from overseas, and they put tariffs, retaliatory tariffs on the things that we buy. Congress must take back the power to impose tariffs. That is Congress's responsibility, not the president's, and that's what I'm going to fight for when I get there.
So I absolutely agree with my colleagues that we need to redo the tax policy and that we need to hold people that are billionaires and multimillionaires responsible for helping our country thrive. We have a thriving economy, so they say. That thriving economy should be paying for our roads. It should be paying for public health care. It should be doing a lot of those things. But what I don't want to give the idea is that I want tax policy to be the paycheck for Americans. Because you know what? Americans work. And our tax dollars should not be subsidizing the companies that they work for. I heard a statistic, I haven't had a chance to check it, but they said if you make $60,000 in your annual wage, $36 of that goes to SNAP benefits and food subsidies for families that need it. $700 of that goes to subsidizing just Amazon. Okay? So we're not talking about taxing people so that we can give out handouts. We are talking about Amazon paying their own employees so that they have the pride and the dignity of showing up at the grocery store with a wallet full of money that they can buy their own groceries. What we are doing to our people is making them feel like they are dependent on the government when they are working. And I see it in my clinic every day. I see moms come in ashamed that they're on Medicaid, ashamed that they're on SNAP. They're working one, sometimes two jobs. And that's what I do.
Thank you. We're going to the topic of healthcare. The overall healthcare system in the United States has long been a poor system, especially compared to other developed nations. As it stands, it will get worse over time as Republicans, including Cliff Bentz, supported tax cuts while reducing funding for Medicaid. What problems do you see in healthcare, and what would you like to do about it? And that question will go to Mary.
Yes, I also want to highlight again how this goes back to the Heritage Foundation and the mandate for leadership. Their third goal is to roll back regulations across environment, labor, finance, education, and health. And then when you couple that with AI and the denial of care, we all should be very much alarmed. There was a Senator, Greg Murphy, who is a doctor for 30 plus years. He had 8 denials to get medicine that he needed to survive. 8, and he is a doctor. So the system is inherently broken. I am fully for a single payer system. There is an issue with corporations overtaking and verticalizing the systems of healthcare where the corporation owns the clinics, they own the pharmacy benefit managers, they own the hospitals, they own the insurance, and the list goes on. And every step of the way, they are extracting off of our bodies and weaponizing our health against us. So that must end. We should not be the country that is the poorest in our delivery models for healthcare. And we need to have that end with holding corporations accountable by breaking them up and then working on a template to get us to a single payer system. If you by chance have the fortunate thing to have money to buy a secondary concierge service on top of that, great. But we have to raise the floor instead of lowering the basement. We have to raise our access, our eyes, our teeth, our mental health are all a part of our systems in our healthcare. Thank you.
I have 2 terms I want you to remember today. The first one is provider's tax. The second one is vertical integration, because you are paying through the nose for your health care because of those 2 things. The provider's tax, that is a tax, it's a state tax that's paid by medical providers who serve Medicaid patients. That money goes into our state coffers that they then use for Medicaid. It is matched by the federal government. That's where we get our money for Medicaid. It was slashed almost in half by that HR 1 bill that they call the big beautiful bill. What that means is that the money we have available for Medicaid was also almost slashed in half. It's going to kill our rural hospitals. So we need to reestablish that provider tax. That's the first thing. Vertical integration goes back to what Mary was talking about. Big corporations like CVS that own everything down the chain. Like she said, they own the drug manufacturers, they own the health insurance, they own the pharmacies, they own the medical buildings. They are getting a part of every penny of your medical journey. We must disband these conglomerates much the way we did with banks 30 years ago. Because until we do that, they will continue to control our medical costs.
So obviously healthcare is near and dear to my heart, and it's becoming a growing issue. And I say that with also the understanding that these are all arguments that we've heard before. This has been an issue that we've been crippled by for at least 30 years. And we had a good opportunity to make some real headway with the Affordable Care Act, but in the last minute, they did away with the public option. So one of the concrete things that I think we need to do in terms of getting us bridged to a single payer health system, which I do agree with. But we need to bridge there. And one thing we can do very quickly is to unhinge or disconnect folks' health insurance from their jobs. We need portable health insurance plans so that you're not having to stay at the same employer. And that enables us to have a little bit of movement and a little bit of choice for people while we're continuing to figure out how we do option 2, which is to incentivize all the states to come up with their own public health options. We're working on it here in Oregon. We would be much further along if we had federal incentives and helps to do that. And then we can look at the states and what they're doing and then piggyback off that, come up with the best plan and piggyback that into a federal option. So those are my things. However, this focus on who pays for healthcare doesn't even get at the heart of the problem. We have shortages of healthcare providers. There are so many other parts that are broken and we can't even get to them because we're still arguing 30 years later about how we pay for it. We need to take the model of other countries and get that argument over. And I have to stop. Thank you. I won't run away this time.
Thank you.
4. There are now 4 billionaires in the healthcare industry. That says it all right there. We are closing our medical facilities. There are neonatal unit in the birthing center in Baker City. We know what happened in Ashland. In the Dalles where I live, they cut down the number of available beds. What's happening is we're having less choice. I was in Baker City and I asked the group there, I said, how many of you have helicopter insurance? You know, life flight? Pretty much everybody raised their hand. The nearest place that has a trauma center is Boise. That's staggering. That says a lot about the state we're in. It means we have less choice. It means we also have the crushing medical debt. And I'm sure this message will probably resonate with many of you in here, that there have been times we choose not to go to the doctor because we think the problem might go away. And then we end up in the emergency room. And we're ending up using the emergency room because it's the last stop, because we don't feel like we should go earlier for preventative care. It becomes an emergency and it ends up costing more. Right now, we're living at a lower standard than any other Western civilized country in the world. I believe that we need to come in and have a single payer type of situation. And the irony is that we're paying probably more at this point than having a single payer, but in the single payer, we would not have the specter of crushing medical debt bankrupting us. Thank you.
Thank you. The next up is the topic of wildfire. A huge issue here in Southern Oregon is wildfire. We just don't have threats of wildfire, but we have the realities and the scars to prove it. What are your thoughts on the matter, and what do you believe Congress should do on the topic? I'm going to start with Patty.
Who here has been affected by wildfires? Yeah. I live in Phoenix. Phoenix was burned to the ground for the most part back in 2020. We all know the problem of wildfires in this area, but it isn't just wildfires alone. It ties into the environment. I was honored to go on a couple of field trips with the Spokane people, and they taught me a lot about what's going on in our forests and why they're dying. And it all goes back to climate change. Whether people want to believe it exists or not, it exists. The new head of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, I believe his name is known for rolling back standards. If we had not had the policies put in place that were put in place back in the 1970s, they are estimating that over 200,000 people would have died from pollution. On the other hand, they're saying that we saved $50 trillion because we didn't have all the health issues we would have had if pollution had gotten progressively worse. We have to stand up for the environment. That means clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and safe land to grow our crops. I am going to fight those naysayers of climate change and get our world saved. Thank you.
So of course, we agree with those goals. And CD2 I think it's about 50 to 60% of the land in CD2 that's actually national forests. And the question is, why, when we know all this information and we know what the answers are, why haven't we been able to come to solutions? I will disagree with one thing. I went on the same walk with someone from SoCan. He was awesome to bring us out. He also noted that our lack of forest management beyond just climate change is a significant problem. When you let every sapling grow and they never have met with a smaller fire, then you have way too much wood growing up in an under-resourced soil, and that's why there's a lot of tree death when you drive out across the US. So there is a long-standing issue where we have not done what we need for the forests, despite the fact that we know what to do. And what is that? It's hyperpartisanship. Our public lands should not be a partisan issue. We know the answer, we know what needs to be done. It's something that affects all of us, especially in our area. But the reason we can't get to solutions is because we create these artificial fights as if there's a side. There's not a side. We all win when our forests are healthy. We all win when we have adequate funding to manage our national parks. But instead, special interests come in. They set up an argument. They say, you're over there and we're over there, and nothing gets done.
Thank you.
Oh boy, this is actually in my wheelhouse because I'm an admin for the Columbia Gorge Wildland Fire Information page. We were around before watch duty, so that covers mostly the Columbia Gorge area. So when a fire happens, I'm the one typing up the note, letting people know where the fire is and all the details. So I'm also listening to the scanner and I'm hearing people screaming for resources. It is the worst feeling in the world when you hear people on the radio saying we need more, tankers, we need more water, and there isn't any because everybody else is tied up in other fires. We are absolutely understaffed, under-resourced. But I think this is a direct consequence of the earlier practices of the U.S. Forest Service. So we have a situation where a lot of those natural fires would have burned through and cleared out the undergrowth, but now it's just built up tinder. Now, we just came over from Roseburg yesterday, and just coming over the Cascades there, if you've been over like Salem and Eugene, almost every place now has a big scar burn as we go through the mountains. And it's really staggering to see how much, our resources are literally going up in smoke, not to mention our communities and people losing their homes, their livelihoods. So in Congress, I pledge to make sure that we have responsible forest practices that encourage healthy fire management and encourages the growth. I'm concerned about the environment, and I also believe that we need to have the resources to protect families and their homes and their businesses and all those things. It's
All right,
important.
Thank you. All right.
So for me, wildfire also, as everyone who raised their hands, has touched home. I'm divorced, and I met my ex-husband, when he was a logger. So he logged on the Mount Hood National Forest for decades, and he traveled to Alaska to do the same. I learned a lot from him, but I also learned that at times our logging industry is at odds with the bureaucracy in our federal government. I learned the other day that a U.S. federal court judge in Medford did rule that they were trying to rule for this commercial logging project that was meant to be for small, innocuous little jobs. But the commercial corporate logging interests wanted vast swaths of tens of thousands of acres to go into log. And I think what it comes down to is there is a disconnect to what it means to be an environmental steward, but to also leverage our natural resources. And we all know, as the ladies have all said, that wildfire is climate change. Wildfire is economics. It is impacted in our environmental stewardship. And it's really important that we need to dig into the issues and allow for sustainable logging on our forest lands while also protecting our environment. The Mountain Pact is 100+ communities across the western states where we want to protect our natural forests for recreation. That brings in tourism dollars to these small economies. And when we have wildfires that rip through our communities, we are actually damaging our local economies. Thank you.
Thank you. So next up, we're going to talk about campaigning. Oregon Congressional District 2 is the 5th largest congressional district in the United States by area and 2nd largest of any district that is not entire state. Eastern Montana is number 1, for those wondering. Without revealing all of your secrets, how do you see yourself winning in November? I'm going to start with Rebecca.
Okay. So I actually had the great opportunity to look at a blogger that had a video, and he asked a lot of the same questions. And he voiced concern. He's like, this far in the race, why haven't we seen our CD2 candidates? Why haven't we seen their videos out there? Why haven't we heard their voices? And I'll tell you, it's because campaigning is hard, and I'm one voice. And I have an awesome campaign team down here, and I've had some people come along and support me. But the number one thing that keeps you from seeing my videos is, this is the first time I've had an audience. To like, really? Not the first time, but it's hard to get an audience. I can invite you all over, but getting people to show up and hear our messages is always a challenge. It takes money and it takes time to rent the spaces and be in the places. I'm also just going to be honest, I still work full time. And I'm not going to give that up until I know if I win the primary, because my patients are precious to me. So my strategy in campaigning is to reach people where they are, to focus on areas that are higher in population, which is down here in the Southern Valley, and then to try and reach across the distance to hear people's messages, hear people's concerns, and we do have plans to get there later on in this season. I haven't spent very much time outside of this area yet, but I think they still have the same issues, and that's where I'm focusing.
Great, thank you. Dawn.
Okay, it goes without saying, and I actually kind of wear this as a badge, and people haven't heard of us because we're not professional politicians or we're not bankrolled by millionaires. So, with that in mind, we are of the people, we are from you. We are here to be able to connect with you. And part of this in my campaign, quite frankly, is going to places that I probably feel uncomfortable. That there are going to be people that I'm meeting with are absolutely, not in my court. But part of this process is listening. And I'm the kind of person where if you can sit down and give me a logical argument, supported by facts, and be civil, then you might change my mind. And even if you don't change my mind, then I'm going to understand something from a different perspective, and that goes into the process of governing. You actually have a better understanding of how best to represent your client, your constituent interests. So it's about getting out there, saturation. I kind of look at like Michelle Yeoh in that movie, Everywhere, Everything, All at Once. That's where I'm going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like Rebecca said, it's hard to campaign when they don't even know who we are, right? And I just also want to reiterate that whoever wins the primary has the backing of all three of us. We are doing this in conjunction because we all believe that democracy needs to be saved. And I think all of us who are sitting here tonight can agree with that as well. As an educator who has worked in high poverty areas, I believe that my ability to work under pressure and to still deliver is what is important. I've had insults hurled at me verbally. I have had things thrown at me. I have had parents, verbally attack me online and in person, and I still show up the next day with a smile on my face to teach their student. So it's that resilience that I have walking through in this campaign is what I believe is why I'm going to win. I also believe that this district wants competence, they want independence, and they want accountability, and not party talking points. I listen to understand. I empathize with people's struggles. I ask lots of questions, and then I want to make a plan with them. Because if we are all not on the same page, we're not going to get anything accomplished. And so one more thing that I do when I'm in talking with people is I always have an empty chair, or more than one, because I want every constituent to be represented in the conversations. If they're not there physically, at least they're symbolically being represented with the conversations that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
There have ever only been 2 Democrats that have held this seat. There's never been a woman. So we all know what an uphill climb this is. But there's some good news. I was in Ontario on Thursday holding an event, and we were having the event in their most popular restaurant. It was very loud, very crowded. And so I was having to stand up and talk pretty loudly to the table that I was addressing. And I realized there was a table behind me filled with 3 MAGA bros. And I could tell they were there. I heard them snickering. I got done talking to the people at the table. I was going around speaking to each of them individually when one of those gentlemen came up and he tapped me on the shoulder and he goes, "I got a question for you." I said, "Okay, go ahead and shoot." He said, "Do you like Trump?" I should have said I don't like his policies, but instead I said, "Oh no, I do not like Trump." And he said, "That's what I thought." And he went back to his table. And I thought, this is a really good learning moment. So I went over and talked to him and I said, "I've got a question for you." And we hit up the conversation, all 3 of us. And at the end of that conversation, now we didn't agree on really anything other than there's too much fighting going on. He shook my hand and he said, "Thank you for talking to us." He said, "There's too much fighting. We need to all get along."
So the nature of Congress is that once you are elected, your input on bills will be limited compared to those that have seniority. You'll also have the privilege to serve with hundreds of people that got to Congress by telling everyone how much they like President Trump and everything he does. How are you going to deal with all that and take your personal experience to be effective as you can be? And that will go to Dawn.
Effectiveness in Congress, I kind of see as a 3-part thing. Number 1, as we all know, Bence is not being effective because he's not responding to his constituents. So, just like Calvin Coolidge put on his desk, "The buck stops here," I'm going to put one on my desk that says, "The people stop here." My obligation is to you, number 1. Number 2, bipartisanship. It means that I need to seek out those connections ahead of actually needing them and having those conversations so we can collaborate and work together. Number 3, I believe that you need to be able to be courageous, even if it's not what the party wants. So I'm willing to stand up. And the 4th thing I want to say too is I want to make sure that I am as up to speed on every single facet of every single issue. That's a big bite, I know. But that's incumbent that this is not a spectator sport. This is full contact when you get to Congress. And you need to be there and be present and be advocating every single minute of every single day for the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
To be an effective member of Congress, we have to know how to build coalitions. We have to know the details, and we actually have to know and understand how the system works. That is the first important thing when coming in as a junior member. And I believe I can do those things I can leverage the strategies that I've had in my education career. I've also served as a student services coordinator and athletic director, as well as serving on boards of our local and state unions and being a delegate as well. I also have run complex public institutions within education on limited budgets, knowing how compliance works, and understanding that people and outcomes are intrinsically intertwined. And we all need to recognize that oversight is actual power. And I know how to ask the right questions and to follow the money. Because who has the money currently is who has the most power. And that's why we need to take money out of politics and end the corruption. We also know that seniority matters. But I truly believe that preparation actually matters more. And one thing I know how to do as a teacher is how to prep. Thank you.
Thank you. That's pretty exciting.
I like to use 3 words to describe myself: fighter, fixer, friend. Fighter, I don't put up with bullies, and there are a lot of them in DC, and I don't tolerate it. So I will get there, and when there are things that I know need to be done to improve your lives I don't care if I'm a junior congresswoman. I will be fighting and standing up with everyone to get that put through to improve your lives. Fixer. I was raised in a family where you did not assign blame. That if something happened to you, even if it was out of your control, you didn't point fingers, you figured out how to fix it. And I'm a really good fixer. And then the last thing is friend. I have been accused by many people of never having met a stranger. I can talk to anybody. And I am one of the few people that actually likes people. And so when I get to Washington, I plan on walking across the aisle, speaking to everyone I can, especially people who represent areas similar to our district, and figuring out how we can help the people in our districts, in those rural areas that are all suffering from a lot of these plans, a lot of legislation that's been put through, how we can make things better for the people in our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you've heard this a lot. I agree with my colleagues here. One of the things that I didn't get to mention on healthcare is that one of the reasons that we have the lens on healthcare that we do is that in the House of Representatives, there is no committee on healthcare. In the Senate, there is. In the House of Representatives, the committee is a subcommittee, and it's within a couple departments, including appropriations and commerce, which means it's buried in committees that are all about money. And so one of the things I want to do as a healthcare provider is advocate that we mirror what's going on in the Senate, and that we actually have a committee on healthcare, that we stop looking at healthcare as a commercial industry and we look at it as a public good. So one of the other things that I am really good at is actually talking with people that disagree with me. Every day, I'm actually known as a pediatrician that has a lot of anti-vaxxers in my clinic. And it's something that I didn't know I was going to come across. I came from Iowa. It's a heavily vaccinated state. And at first, I was like, I'm going to go toe-to-toe with these people. And then I realized I cared far more about them coming back and their children continuing to get care than arm wrestling them into a position that they weren't ready for. And I also have patients that disagree with me on other things. So I'm going to use that same mindset of, we may disagree on some things, but I bet we agree on more than we disagree, and that's what's needed in Congress.
Thank you. So next up, we're going to talk about climate change. Representative Cliff Betts is a member of the Conservative Climate Caucus, which claims that reducing emissions is the goal, not reducing energy choices. The caucus also acknowledges the global industrial era is responsible. It is obvious that Representative Betts will not be doing anything on this topic. How would you challenge him on this topic, and what would you like to see Congress do? And we'll start off with Mary.
That is a big topic because we know that climate change is our everyday lives. And when Congressman Betts capitulates and has fealty to an administration that accepts oil money, we know he is not working for our own interests. And again, it comes back to having the 28th Amendment of taking money out in running for elections. We cannot have corporate interests by our elections because then we are not protecting the very existence that we need to live and survive. So the 28th and the 29th Amendment would be the first things I would push forward and find a coalition to do that. I would call out every member of Congress who is taking oil PAC money. I would make sure that we have an education system that goes back to civics education. I truly believe that when we took and changed it to social studies, that is why we are here today. We also need to educate all of our students on media literacy. They have to be able to see the propaganda that is being pushed out. We have to have our children come up through our public education so they can think critically and make the right choices, because that is why we are here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say ditto? I agree with everything Mary just said. The current, as I mentioned, the current EPA head, Zeldin, he did a lot of very negative things when he was in Congress, and he's doing the same thing now. And we need to fight those. There are certain things that are called, and I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly, forever chemicals. He moved to rescind the policy we had to limit those forever chemicals, 4 out of the 6. And now he's working on the other 2. We have to, through education, as Mary said, we have to educate the population, not just the kids in school, but everybody, because we've all met climate deniers who just say, oh, this is cyclical. But you know what? Yes, climate changes over long periods of time, but it has never changed this rapidly in such a short period of time. The way the ice is melting in the Antarctic, they are expecting that the CO2 and the methane that's going to be released from that will cause more damage than has ever been caused to our Earth. We have to get all of these policies put back in place, and that's what I'm going to fight for, making them stronger, not weaker.
Thank you.
So we all know that Trump has won 2 elections, and only 2 elections, by saying, make America great again. And one of the things that we often ask ourselves is, what is he referring to? I know when I think about what makes America great, I think about America being a leader in innovation. And when we drop out of international climate agreements, we are basically just saying, we're not part of the solution, you guys figure it out. And when we look at our future economy and our ability to continue to lead in the world economy, pulling ourselves away from this issue is putting us in the past. So if you use the term climate change in CD2, I have been told many times that will get someone redirecting off your website, redirecting away from your platform immediately. But what we do know is that all of us want to make America a leader in innovation. What we also, maybe you don't know, I had to look it up, our district has some of the largest solar and wind energy creation, not farms, because that's not what you call solar, but they have very large plants. Several of them are in progress, and Trump shut them down because of funding. So we do know that we've already made significant investment, and that when we can remind people that CD2 can be at the heart of innovation, that can move us forward.
Thank you.
I am a daughter of a scientist. I believe that the numbers don't lie. I believe in facts, not science fiction. I believe that we're being gaslighted by an administration that's really focused on profit, not our environment. And I can see from my own eyes what's going on in my own property. We have trees dying from drought in the decks. We have record species extinctions. It's all connected. Our food, our water, our economy, our farms, our houses, everything is connected. That the facts don't lie. And I understand that we have the technology to actually fix climate change, but not the political will. I have the political will, and I commit to fighting this with everything I got because our lives depend on it.
Thank you. Housing and homelessness are different issues, but in many aspects are linked together. What do you see happening in Oregon, and what do you want to do to address it in Congress? And this will go to Patty.
You've got one more slide, please.
Sure. So housing and homelessness are different issues, but in many aspects are linked together. What is it you see happening across Oregon, and what do you want to do to address it in Congress? Housing and homelessness, yes.
Thank you. It is a serious question, and we see it all the time here in Medford. We see it in Ashland. There are many people that are on the streets, and it's a horrible issue. And it's going to require money. And I know we don't want to hear that. We're already being taxed. But we need to improve our mental health centers. Most of the people who are out there aren't out there because they want to be on the streets. Many of them have mental health issues, and we are not addressing that. We're sending them to shelters, or we run them off from their camps without trying to help them. These are Americans just like we are. And if we are not going to take care of our own, then what does that say about our country? Yes, as I said, it's going to take money, but we have to provide the mental health facilities for these people. We need to help them be reintegrated into society so that they can help the communities that they are in. That's really the basis of what I have to say on that.
Thank you.
Far be it from me to dismiss ideas about our need for mental health resources, because absolutely I agree with that. But our housing crisis is tied to a crisis we talked about before, which is affordability. So one of the ways we address the housing crisis is by making sure that people are making fair wages so they can afford their rents. However, we have 7.3 million homes that are needed to house low-income folks in the United States who are currently bunking up with friends, staying in shelters, paying in temporary motels. We are lacking 7.3 million homes. So we have to invest. We have to cut red tape. You know, Democrats are super known for regulation. Guess what? One thing is that we need to be smart and streamlined about how we regulate. Do we want people building houses in polluted areas? Of course not. Do we want them to be building cheap houses or things that are not environmentally friendly? Of course not. But we better get our act together and streamline, because we have people that need housing and they need it now. So we also need to, there's a rent assistance plan called the tenant-based rent assistance. And it's basically, this is how governments support renters without building apartment units for them. It allows them to take those benefits to wherever they would like to live instead of having to be stuck in one spot. So supporting that is also a federal policy.
Thank you.
I can say probably most truthfully that becoming homeless is not a career goal. There's always trauma involved, mental health involved, and there's also extenuating circumstances. And when you kind of merge it with the perfect storm of what we have right now, with policies that are directly impacting the working class and the middle class and taking away their economic power, that all of us are a lot closer to being houseless and homeless than we are being millionaires. That there is the root cause of the problems. That being said, we have to look at creating policies that recreate these safety nets, but we do need to make sure and break down the problem in all the different corners that it presents. That includes creating the support systems and the safety nets that help people on all the different things. Healthcare. It's everything we've been talking about from an affordability thing. When we all suffer from affordability issues, then that causes more people to hit the streets, and that's not by choice. I'm committed to finding solutions that will help us bring back up the working class, bring back up the middle class, because that is the crux of our problem right now. And there are many people that were very well employed and they lost their job because the company moved the job overseas, or the company decided to cut jobs because they wanted to sell the company and make a profit. We all know that pain. Thank you.
So to me, obviously, housing and homelessness is intertwined. We, as the others have said, we need to raise the floor of our minimum wage across our country. We're fortunate in Oregon that it's $15.05. I mean, we really are. When you look at places in the Deep South, it's It's surreal what those people are making. We have to reform our tax policy, as I've reiterated over and over again. We have to align with the working class to have a fair chance at existing. We also have to outlaw hedge funds and corporations from buying up subdivisions in our country and pushing out people who want to rent. We also have to have and maintain our Fed chair independence, which we're losing in a few months. We also need to invest in schools because schools are now the catch-all for society. I'm not just an educator, I'm a social worker, I'm a counselor, I'm a school psychologist. I'm a liaison so they can get access to funds so they don't end up on the streets. I've had students couch surf and live in the woods in tents when it's nice outside. We need to do better. Cliff Bentz is not delivering, let alone what CD2 needs, but his capitulation to this administration is affecting everyone in our country, and this must end. Thank you.
So I'm going to give you guys just a moment to think about this one. So who is a leader who you most admire? And how would you follow that leader's example as a candidate and as a representative in Congress? So I'll give you just a moment. And while you guys think, I do want to make a couple of quick recognitions. I see State Senator Jeff Golden is in the audience with us today. Also, candidate for Jackson County Commissioner 3, Isabella Tibbetts. Might be in here or might be looking out at the hallway. I'll also point out that if you want to be a candidate, you still have time. House District 6, which encompasses Medford, we do not have a candidate for that yet. Jackson County Commissioner District Position 1, also, we need a candidate for that. We need to be electing people up and down the ballot. We need to fill those seats. So with that, we'll go to Rebecca. So who is a leader you most admire and how would you follow that leader's example as a candidate and as a representative in Congress?
Man, I'm not great at these questions, but so throw me for a loop. Bernie Sanders, actually. So Bernie Sanders. I followed Barack Obama, and I'm not. I know he's super popular, but I also talked to some union leaders that felt absolutely betrayed that they had worked for him and that he was supporting this TPP. And I was there in 2016. I was a Democratic National Convention delegate there supporting Bernie Sanders. And what I loved about him is he knew exactly who he was. I think one of the most inspiring things was watching videos of him through the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, where every time he would stand up, and he just did this last week, by the way, and he replayed the history of income inequality. He replayed the history of people struggling. And a lot of people call him a communist. I would say he's highly focused on economic fairness. And if we can get over these labels and just get rid of them on the Democratic Party, man, that would be nice. But I love that you know what Bernie Sanders stands for, that he can go stand for that in West Virginia or in Vermont or in Oregon. And I hope that I can be a candidate that everybody knows that even though we might have some disagreements about the fine-tuning things, that I believe in human dignity. It is the absolute guiding principle of my campaign, and that's consistency for you.
Okay, well, that was a hard choice because I know a lot of people that I look up to, but I'd have to say AOC. She takes no prisoners. For me, the candidate has to speak the truth. They have to have a passion for what they do. They have to be willing to call people out on the carpet. I don't know if any of you saw her takedown of the CBS president. That was fabulous. And we have to be willing to do that kind of thing. So it's her being to speak so brave and courageous and take no prisoners. We have to have that in this age that Democrats have to take off the gloves. This is not a time for political safety. We have to fight, and we have to fight like hell, and that's where I'm going with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do agree with Rebecca and I do agree with Dawn, but the first person who popped up in my head was not a politician. And that's one thing that I want to reiterate is neither of the four of us, we're not career politicians and we have no intention of being a career politician. The person who came to my mind is Maya Angelou. And I hope I pronounced her name correctly, her last name. I will paraphrase one thing that she said that I had on a tagline for my email for several years. And I posted across the building in the schools and handed out placards to teachers to remind them of this quote. It is, people will never forget, or no, people will forget the words that you say, but they will never forget how those words made you feel. And when Rebecca speaks of dignity, that's how we have to walk through life. Who here feels scared for what's happening? Hands down. Who here knows it's a 9/11, it's a fire this midterm, it's a 5-alarm fire? Who truly believes that? I think we can all agree on that. So when we go to engage with those people who are unlike us, please remember that the words you say will be forgotten, but how you engage in the words you use, the feelings will sit with them forever. So we do have to be careful in how we have our alliances going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, I love me some AOC. But I have to say the politician that I most respect is Pete Buttigieg. I love Pete because if you watch him on Fox News, he talks like he's talking to a group of friends, and he can say things that get the reporters nodding in agreement until they realize what they're agreeing to. You know, and Pete is honest about who he is. He doesn't hide the fact that he's in a same-sex marriage. He was in the military, he was a Rhodes Scholar, and he believes in the people, in taking care of the people first. And he will stand up with integrity and with knowledge to do everything he can to make this a better country. He did that when he was in charge of the transportation department, and he would do that again as president. So I'm all for Pete.
Thank you. So we're going to have closing comments from our candidates. They will have 1 minute each for their closing thoughts. And we're going to go to an opposite order of how we started. So we'll start at the end with Mary.
All right, I have 1 minute to sum up everything why I should win this campaign. I want you to think to yourself, this is what I do in school a lot. I want you to think to yourself for a moment of these 3 things, what you can do to stop the authoritarian takeover of our government. I want you to either pick one that protects people, one that costs corporations to bring them to their knees, otherwise we must have a general strike, or one that organizes. Now I want you to turn around the people in your room and think about how you can leverage those choices to get out the vote and ensure that we win this midterm. It is so important that we come together and protect everyone, regardless of what they look like, how they identify, their socioeconomic status. We all deserve to live in a world and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you.
In my marriage, I always told my husband, I said, don't tell me what I can't do, because he'll have some doubts from some of my crazy ideas I like to do. But anyway, I believe and I know I can win. I know that we don't have hope, but I'm going to say you need to have hope because there's every reason to hope. Bence is more vulnerable than he has ever been. The door is opening. We saw in Texas that Taylor Ream, I hope I said his name right, he just won by a 30-point margin in a red district by a candidate endorsed by Trump, and he was the competitor was paying 20-1. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Well, guess what? We're going to take it right now. We are going to win this district and turn this seat blue so we can bring sanity back to politics. I believe this can happen, and it can happen because of all of you. So please join me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Similarly, I'm going to ask for three things. And I think one of the most powerful things we can do to help us earn the trust and respect of people that have never voted blue in their life is to drop down our guard a little bit. Not judge them for who they voted for in the past. Not assume that you know why they voted for him. Look at them at their neighbors and understand that maybe they had reasons. They thought the economy was better and they were on their last leg. Who knows what it was, but connect with them before you judge them. The second thing I want every single person in this room to do is fly your American flag and fly it right next to something that identifies you as a Democrat. We need to reclaim that Democrats are patriots too. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is not wait until the primary is decided to get involved. We need to hit the ground running as soon as we have a candidate. And we can only do that if we have volunteers that have prepped, that have already knocked on doors, that already know what they're doing, that are involved in communities all around. So we need help. Pick somebody and go for it.
As I said earlier, hello, here we go. As I said earlier, I am not a politician. I never had any desire to be a politician. But last February, I found I was going to be a grandmother for the first time. And I thought to myself, I will be damned if I'm going to let my grandchild grow up in a world that has less freedom than I had when I was growing up. I am a fighter. When I decide I'm going to do something, it gets done. I'm honored to run alongside these women. And yes, we have a unified campaign because if we can't work with each other when we agree with each other, how the hell are we going to work with someone across the aisle when we get to Washington? And yes, we have all agreed that whoever wins the primary, the other's going to get back and help them get across the finish line to beat Cliff Betts. And we can do it. What you need to do is talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, and make sure they vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our candidates.